For years, I felt like my connection to God was a very staticky one. I couldn't hear his voice. It was always very faint. I felt too loosely tethered to him, even though he was important to me. Well, you may have the same problem I did if that's what you're experiencing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience and how I've learned to hear God's voice in a much better way. And for me, as it might be for you, possibly for you, it was perpetual sin in my life, one particular perpetual sin, and that was drinking alcohol. Now, I don't believe drinking alcohol is a sin for everybody, but for me, God had been telling me to give it up for almost 20 years. I started drinking in high school and felt a unhealthy connection to that substance from day one. From day one, I felt this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. An addiction runs in my family. And so there were all kinds of factors playing into it. But as I went into college and became a young adult, it felt impossible to give it up, even though I made some destructive choices and put myself in danger. Nobody would say I had a problem, but I was struggling. I was struggling with this calling from God to say, you're putting this in front of me. This is a barrier. This is a blockade. And yet there I was, stunted in my growth as a Christian because I refused to listen to God telling me to give it up. I felt like it was impossible. I couldn't do it. And so I put it off and I put it off and I put it off. And no matter how much I would grow in my relationship with God, I would always shrink back because sin kills. Sin kills your growth. And because this was a very obvious particular sin, I can look back and say, yeah, that was it. That's what was killing the voice of God coming clearly into my ears. And so fast forward, here I am, and I've now given up drinking for over 18 months. And in the past 18 months, I have heard God's voice more clearly than I have my entire life as a Christian. It is so clear to see that this sin of drinking alcohol when God wanted me to stop, like here's God up here, here's me, and then here was the sin right in the middle of us. So it could, his voice could filter through, but it was quiet, it was dim, and that sin was preventing me from growing. It was not letting the light in adequately. And so I'm here to tell you, if you have a perpetual sin in your life or something that you feel like God's been telling you to give up, give it up. It's worth it. It hurts. It's hard. But the voice of God, nothing can replace that. But you're not going to be able to hear it unless you get that sin out of the way.